So naturally, we're going to start the show exactly where the headline of the show has us at. The Red Wings collapse is nearly complete. So let me just get the exact standings here for you really fast. You can tell I'm highly prepared here. One moment, please. Here we are. Here's our standings. So right now, your beloved Detroit Red Wings are 2 points out of a wild card spot. Unfortunately for them, they are down 1-0 to a team that is tied for them with 88 points in the Columbus Blue Jackets, who, if they lose this game today, will, of course, jump you. And you will be then closer to you'd be, let's see, if you're the fifth, 1, 2, 3, and then one, hold on, if you're 5, 1, 2, 3, you'd be as close to Toronto as you would be to the wild card spot, at least in terms of the numbers. Obviously, the points, you're closer, but actually, yeah, maybe you wouldn't. I don't. Either way, everything sucks, and just if you want to know what my thoughts are on Steve Yzerman or on this team, on this roster, go watch the myriad of videos I've done on this team. I've done videos on the Red Wings going back to the first year of this show, and just how sad and pathetic and gutless they look down the stretch, and how it just hasn't gotten better. It hasn't gotten better since that, first really big collapse in the final season of Derek Lalonde, where I said he should have been fired afterwards, and of course was vindicated when he immediately was fired the following season because he was a terrible head coach. And now we're in the midst of a second potential collapse for Todd McLellan, who very well could also be fired because he seemingly can't do the job right. Now, again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of all of who's to blame. You know my opinion on this. Steve Yzerman has to be fired. But forget all that. Forget about what you think of me and how I don't know puck. I don't know how to ice skate, so I can't comment on the sport that's played by like less than 1% of the world population. Forget about all of that. Okay? I just want to ask to all Red Wing fans, this is a safe environment. What stage of grief are you in with this team? Are you in denial? Do you believe that this team could still go on a run? I mean, technically, they're not mathematically out of it. They could go on a run. It won't entirely be in their control, but they can definitely, like, in principle, they can still make the playoff. They can still win this game. I mean, they're not out of it by any stretch, technically. Are you in that stage? Are you in the denial stage? You just want to believe until they're mathematically out that the collapse is not going to happen. They're going to figure it out. McLellan's going to get his guys going. Gibson is going to, turn it on. Dylan Larkin, whoever. Fine. That's where you're at. You're in the denial stage. Okay. Maybe you're in the anger stage. You still get mad at this collapse. Like, you still are angry when they lose, or at the coaching, or at the general manager, or at ownership. You're just angry. Every time you watch the team, your blood boils. Me, I don't really get angry anymore. At this point, I just kind of laugh because I've been saying it all year that, talk to me in March, and then we'll talk about whether this team is actually elevated and whether the quote unquote Yzer plan is working. So yeah, see how that worked. So I just don't get angry anymore. I knew it was going to happen. I didn't believe that they did enough in the offseason, even though I guess I was happy they made a move at the trade deadline. Obviously, that was not enough. So, yeah, I just don't get angry. Now, the other stage, are you in depression? Is this just making you sad? Is it that it's Steve Yzerman who is basically the Al Avila of the Detroit Red Wings, or just watching as his teams continue to fall apart, whether it's, the free agents that he brought in, whether it's the JT Compher, the Andrew Kopps, the Ben Sherratts, the re-signings of Michael Rasmussen, whether it's those kinds of moves that just They just make you sad. It makes you sad to think about that this team is going to go on 10 years without making the playoffs, most of which are under Steve Yzerman's tenure. Does that make you sad? Does it make you sad that the Buffalo Sabres have made the playoffs more recently than you? Does that make you sad? Because it doesn't really make me that sad. Because I have entered what is, of course, the final stage of grief. Acceptance. The team is just what they are. That this is like, I can't be mad. I can't be depressed because they are what they are. They have showed me what they are. They showed me who they were 3 years ago. They showed me who they were 2 years ago. They showed me who they were last year. This is just who the Detroit Red Wings are right now. And under Steve Yzerman, there's no reason to believe that anything is truly going to change. Because let's just think about this, okay? Even if you want to be the optimist of optimists, you want to be Mr. Peter Positive, right? And you want to say next year they make the playoffs. What is the win there? You know, like, this is what I try to think. What is the victory in making the playoffs finally after 11 years? And what would that be? 8 of which would be under Steve Yzerman? Precisely what is the win there? You know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at? Like, is that a sign that your patience has finally paid off? Because that to me is the sign of someone who, to go back to the first stage, is in denial. This is not a successful rebuild. It's not even close. After 4 years under a general manager, you should expect to be in championship contention. After 5 years, you absolutely are a championship contender. After 6 or 7 years, you know, either things have started to fall apart for said prior championship contention, or you're retooling or whatever. Or maybe you are continuing to be a championship contender. What you certainly are not is missing the playoffs. And not just happening to miss the playoffs after 7 years because, like I said, championship team falling apart, but missing the playoffs because you have never made the playoffs. That is unacceptable. That is not what a winning team does. That's not what a winning organization does. I mean, I understand hockey fans going to say, well, hockey's different, so don't you compare it to other sports. Sorry, I'm going to do it. What other sport are you allowed to just be out of the playoffs for 7 years and have nobody get fired outside of the head coach once and then new head coach coming in? 7 years? The GM's still here? That's not the case in football. Heck, in football, if you don't make the playoffs after 4 years, you're probably gone. You know? Not the case in baseball. Not the case in basketball. Heck, it's barely even the case in college sports. So why the NHL? And why, in particular, Steve Yzerman? Because, look, it's one thing again to, after 7 years of competitive championship contention, maybe some bad luck, maybe even a championship, to end up missing the playoffs after 7 years. It's a whole other thing to be missing it all in a row. And, you know, I just don't feel anything. So, look, I mean, right now, this just happened live. The Red Wings tied it up. It's 1-1. Do I really care? No. They could make the playoffs. I really don't care. Because I think I'm just done. You know, I'm emotionally checked out. I don't even really, I will never tell anybody to not root for their team because I don't follow that rule. I do root for my teams. And I'm rooting for them now. But I'm rooting for them in such a way that I just think if you're gonna make the play, if you're gonna do anything, yeah, you make the playoffs. You'd rather make the playoffs than miss the playoffs. But this team has no heart. This team has no culture. This team is just so blah. I mean, forget about your opinion about all the other GMs in the city, right? Forget about your distrust of all the GMs. Whether you don't like Brad Holmes, you don't like Trajan Langdon or Scott Harris, whatever. You don't have to like these guys. Forget about any of your particular negative attitudes or factual, logic-based criticisms of those guys. Those guys are running a program. Those guys have built cultures. Those guys have built teams that you can say there's an identity to that team. And there's a rationality behind the moves or the lack thereof of moves. You can understand it. Tell me the strategy of Steve Yzerman. Tell me the type of team he's building. I couldn't tell you. Old and slow? People from Michigan? Literally, I don't know. There's nothing to this team. So, make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, doesn't really matter to me. Steve Yzerman needs to be fired. And if you can't see that after 7 years, I don't know when you'll see it. We're gonna be on the Ken Holland plan, the 10-year rebuild. That's gonna be the only way some people are gonna see it. So we'll see, I guess. Uplifting stuff, I gotta say. Hey YouTube, if you like clips like that, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. We've got live shows every Tuesday night. Hope to see you there.